Welcome to Guitar Gavel, a place for people who love guitars. These are conversations with musicians, guitar enthusiasts, techs, and collectors about their guitar journey and their love of the instrument. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and be sure to sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com. Hey everybody, it's David Still with Guitar Gavel, a place for people who love guitars, and welcome to our podcast. We just talk to essentially just regular people about their guitar journeys, their stories, and hopefully some pretty cool guitars that they have in their collection. And I'm so proud and pleased to talk with Natasha Nix tonight. So if you listened to any of the podcasts thus far, it's kind of this LinkedIn crew that we have, this community. You're welcome to join us on LinkedIn. And so I know Natasha from LinkedIn and some cool guitars already you can see in the background. She's talked about some cool ones before, so we got an exciting time. And Natasha, I'll just kind of turn it over, and I kind of normally just lead in, which is like the question that sets the stage for everything else. And it's Tell us, when did you start playing first guitar? You know, kind of the background there.
Okay. I don't want to lead anyone down a straight path. And by the way, David, thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're welcome.
Awesome,
thank you. Thank you.
I'm a bass player primarily, and I started out as a bass player, but I'm actually at this point a multi-instrumentalist. So I picked up other instruments as I went. But I was 14 years old, and I started playing bass guitar, and it is because me and a group of friends of mine, we were big Kiss fans, and we wanted to put on a pretend Kiss show and wear makeup. And we had a guy that played drums, we had a guy that played guitar, and we had no Gene Simmons. So it fell to me to play that role, and that's really literally how I started playing bass guitar, was because we just needed it for that. And I had talked my dad into getting me a bass for Christmas, and he got me a Hondo 2, if anyone old remembers that brand name, and a Hondo 2, and it was natural finish, and it was just a knockoff of a Fender Precision bass.
That's pretty cool. I had a flashback to a moment. I have to interject where when we were kids, I was like 5, and we did, remember the musical Fame?
Oh,
We put on a musical in our basement, but we called it Foam.
That's hilarious.
I don't remember what part I played. It was my big sister's idea and whatever. But yes, to somebody had to play bass, and here you are.
Yeah, someone had to play bass. That's right. This, and I was just kind of a casual player. This got really serious for me in 2000. I was in my mid-30s, and I really wanted a change of pace, and I loved music so much, and that's all I wanted to do. So I went to recording school, and I went to the recording workshop in Chillicothe, Ohio. It's kind of a small school, but you live there at the school while you're going, and it was a weird time to go because I had grown up with this old-fashioned notion that you're going to go to recording school, then you're going to go maybe intern, but maybe get a job, cleaning microphones at a studio somewhere and work your way up. But technology was advancing at that point. Computers were taking over in Pro Tools. So recording studios, the big rooms were just closing down left and right. Mm-hmm. Nashville was closing down. Not closing down, but just all these studios, and suddenly people with $20,000 or $30,000 worth of Pro Tools rig could do what used to take $500,000 in a big room. So there were no jobs to go to after recording school. And what I did was I started doing live shows, live production, and doing audio for live shows. And that led to being a stage manager. But oddly enough, that put me in contact with a lot of musicians, a lot of different kind of musicians, and a lot of gear. Because then I started doing backline setup. I was doing regular production shows, but also doing some shows on the road, bands and things like that. So then, it got interesting. At one point, for 2 shows, I got to do backline setup for the Moody Blues. So, and I got to set up the bass rig for that. So I'm with their tech. It's not like they just handed this stuff to me, but I'm with their tech, and I'm handling their gear and like putting it in place, and just touching the gear of the Moody Blues. For me, I was just like, oh my God, I'm a gear nut. So it was guitars, it was equipment. And in terms of that part of my guitar life, I would say the pinnacle for that was Pat Benatar came. I lived and worked in Branson, Missouri, and Pat Benatar was coming to do a show. And I worked on the crew that set that up, and I got to work with the guitar tech to set up Neil Girardo's backline setup. So all of Neil's guitars that he had brought, we had access to them, and we chained all of his amps together, and I got to do the whole setup. And the guy that was his tech had been Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick. He had been his guitar tech for 10 years. Wow. So while we're setting up Neil Girardo stuff, I'm hearing road stories of Rick Nielsen's guitars. And once again, I'm just in heaven. So, those are like peak experiences with that kind of contact with high level gear, exotic guitars, seeing this stuff up firsthand. And I learned a lot, and had a fantastic time.
That's so. You're a casual player until not quite midlife, but approaching, and which I can relate to. And in the years, kind of from when you were 14 and you started playing the bass, fast forward, about 20 years, were you? Maybe not in acquisition mode, but I mean, where did you kind of, or was your aha moment there in 2000? That was really the catalyst from then until now.
Well, that was it. Yeah. And also it was kind of a quantum leap forward. Recording school itself, and I don't want to go on too much about recording school per se, but it changed my life. It changed the way I hear music. I would say before recording school, as a metaphor, I was hearing music two-dimensionally. And when I got into recording school and learned about what I was hearing, I suddenly had depth to music, and it became three-dimensional to me. And coming in contact with professional level gear also changed that for me. And getting to know a lot of great players. I met a lot of great players that aren't famous people, and they had fantastic guitars. I worked with a guy once. He played bass, and he had the first Jackson Rainbow Crackle, the first Rainbow Crackle finish that Jackson ever did. Jackson made that for him, and that was before the company.
Wow.
So I was seeing stuff like that. And
did it spoil you?
Well, I was still struggling to afford quality instruments at the time myself. So I was still kind of basic consumer mode. And I guess that was my point, was that once I started working professionally with these people, and I got to see professional gear, then I started to get more educated about what the good stuff is from the cheap stuff. And, for a long time, I didn't know the difference between a P90 and a humbucker pickup. All I knew was that Fenders had single coil pickups and Gibsons had humbuckers. Sure. And there was thicker and thinner, and I thought of them in different ways. But the real intense acquisition phase has been in the last 7 years, where it got pretty intense. I think that happens for a lot of people. I think you need to get to a certain place in life, and a lot of times that's older, where you get to a financial position, or you've settled down some, and your life situation changes and makes room for some of that.
Yeah, and then you have to have also, with all those room somewhere to put all this stuff. Yes. Depending on what you have. Yeah.
Do we want to start looking? I don't want to just keep yakking.
Yeah, sure. Let's totally do it. So, I mean, there's, we can see one honey behind you, and you have a method to your madness. So exciting. You just jump in.
Okay. I feel bad. These are kind of a cliche right now. But I got this last year after Eddie died. And my claim to fame for this guitar is that it's a really low serial number. This is like a 300 and something, and was so
Wow.
that's a Frankenstrat up close, and I love this guitar. And I'm not a person that had taken to relic guitars in the very beginning, but this kind of grew on me, and I started to appreciate relic guitars as kind of an art form. And at first, it's almost, I think for people who are older, like, you're going to buy a guitar that looks like it's been dragged behind someone's car, and
Yeah.
pay more for the privilege of owning that guitar.
Yeah.
But, then I just started, my appreciation for guitars as pieces of artwork was also expanding and growing. So my taste expanded, and then I saw where there was room for that. So I'm not like pro or against relicking. I think it's a matter of personal taste, and I think there are some fantastic relic guitars. The Fender Custom Shop just produces some amazing work.
They do. And there's an art to make it relict too. I mean, an
Yes.
artistry to that process. And it can be a hot button for some people, like exactly as you described it. But I'm with you too. In the right context. To me, done well, it really makes a guitar what it is part of it.
Right. And I don't think I don't think anyone that buys a relic guitar is trying to fool anyone. I
Sure.
don't think that they're going to go play at the local bar and they really want you to believe that they're playing a 1963 Stratocaster
Yeah. Yeah.
at, Billy Bob's beer barn or whatever. So, you know, I don't think anyone's trying to fool anyone. And I think there's a little bit of hype behind people questioning people's motivations for owning a relic guitar. I think they're just artistic.
They are. They are. They're an extension of the builder and the maker and the people whose hands were on the guitar. Totally.
Yeah. And you sent me some points to think about in preparation for this, and one of them was, is there a guitar that got away, or is there something that I still want that I don't have? And absolutely, like, I want a Les Paul Custom, or a really nice Les Paul, and I don't have that yet, but I did pick up this Les Paul Voodoo, and this was an American Musical Supply special production. And I like this guitar for lots of different reasons. I put a custom truss rod cover on it. This all came this way. But check out that flame neck.
Yeah.
That is just fantastic. And so I saw the flame neck on this. I picked this up off Reverb. And this is ash, swamp ash, hence the Voodoo name. And I did do the thing that will make people freak out. I did do some modifications. And the reason I modded this guitar, it's really kind of a dressed up Les Paul Studio. It's, kind of a fancy version of that. And they put these, those slugs are ceramic coils. So this was like a really hot kind of metal guitar. And it had the PCB board in there. And so I bought a upgraded wiring harness and had that put in. I had both the pickups wired together so that there's just a master volume and a master tone for both. They're both on all the time. And I put this kill switch in because I started listening to Buckethead and I was like, oh my God, that whole, kill switch thing. And the one thing I did do was keep all the parts, and I bought a kill switch that's the same size as the toggle switch. So if I want to put the original hardware back on this guitar, I can do that. And I didn't, drill any new holes or do anything differently to this to have that done.
Great move on the truss rod cover. That is pretty slick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the Voodoo, and there's this company, Thalia, I think, and they do like aftermarket truss rod covers and capos. And I saw this done in the same red plastic, the Phases of the Moon that these were in. So that's totally aftermarket, but it matches perfectly with that red perloid material that they used.
Yeah.
For fret markers.
It sure does.
So that was the one time where I got the itch for modifying something. You know, if I had a higher end Les Paul, I wouldn't modify it. I wouldn't do that.
The-
I just saw so many videos about people modifying their guitars. It's like, okay, this one I want to play
This,
with.
this is you want, and it's the red the dot inlays, and it probably looks like this either way, but with the lighting, they almost look like they're LEDs and we're on. I mean, they're
Yeah.
really they're really shiny.
They're just reacting to this podcasting ring light that I have. It's just a perloid substance, and the only thing I don't like about that guitar, but I'm not gonna be too critical, is it's got a Richlite fretboard instead of an ebony fretboard.
Okay.
That was the only kind of letdown for me, but that's like guitar snobbery, right?
Now you're getting fancy, Natasha.
right. And you know, this is I hope sometimes I feel guilty for owning this many guitars, and I don't have a lot of guitars compared to a lot of people out there. But thinking back to the years where I struggled to have one guitar, and now I have like, you know, 9. It's like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But it's a hobby. I don't know, it's a hobby. I love it, and they're pieces of artwork, truly.
They are. Yes.
So I'll keep things moving along.
Okay.
This is a guitar-centered show. If you have questions as I'm going, just interrupt me.
Okay, I will.
I think that Kiesel Guitars is building fantastic guitars. And this is my bass. This is my Brian Bromberg 5-string Kiesel bass. And I did not get my cord tangled up in it here. This is an all walnut body, neck through body. So that is walnut with a stripe of maple and then a stripe of walnut in the middle. So there you get to see where they just sprayed it. That's Jeff Kiesel's initials. So this is stock Kiesel. I love that neck joint, just that neck through body, that kind of woodwork. This is active pickups. Strings go through the body, and so, you know, for those who are purists or more traditional and they don't like active pickups, you know, that's another story. But I'm crazy for quilted maple. So as a consumer, I'm always looking for quilted maple. And I just sent Kiesel the specs for that, and otherwise, it's a stock Brian Bromberg 5-string. I just picked out the woods and the colors.
What the fretboard on it?
Yeah, that's Royal Ebony. So it's streaked ebony.
Oh,
And there's Pale Moon Ebony. This is not Pale Moon Ebony, but this is Royal Ebony. And I have another guitar with a Royal Ebony fretboard that I'll show you from Kiesel, and it'll show you. There can be a lot of variety in Royal Ebony, and so I like that streakiness to it. It kind of looks like rosewood. It kind of looks like if rosewood met ebony, and somehow they got mashed up. You know,
it's beautiful. I'll say the back is just gorgeous too. I mean, it's a coin toss from my perspective.
Yeah.
What front or back?
and I like that clear coat and seeing how it was made. You know, like they didn't shy away from the fact that that's a multi-piece. You know, like there was no like, you know, look at the difference in wood there. You know, this section here
Yeah.
is different. But you know, I dig that. I think it just shows character. You know, it wasn't. You know, I didn't get a quilted back. I didn't fork out the cash for that. But yeah.
And it wasn't necessary to. There's a good way to penny pinch.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Do you have any other questions, or should I keep
No,
going?
I'm enjoying the ride. Keep going.
Okay, yeah. I want to make this interesting. This is a guitar that I have on extended loan from a friend of mine. And you can look him up online. His name is Mark Gemini Thwaite, and he also goes by MGT. He has two solo albums out, but I got to know him because he plays guitar for Peter Murphy when Peter Murphy goes on tour. And this is a 2006 Solo 6 Schecter. So this is an older model, but he had played this. That's still his initials. I didn't change anything when I got
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
And this guitar has been around the world. He played with Gary Newman. He played with Peter Murphy. He played with the Mission UK. And I'm going to tell something out of school here. I'm not really a Bigsby person, but it's fine for this. I think it looks magnificent.
Yeah.
And he did tell me a secret. This was originally Active Electronics, but there's nothing there. He had a different wiring harness put in, and those are actually Gibson PAFs in there. So this is the back of a Schecter Solo 6. That's Mark's. Interesting enough, I was supposed to. He had just gotten hired to play guitar for. Who is it? Lords of Acid. He had just gotten picked up to play guitar for them, and they were about to go on tour, and I'd already sent him the money for this guitar, and I did do an interview with him for my old podcast, and got this guitar. Oh wait, he was with Peter Murphy. He came here with Peter Murphy. I interviewed him and got to know him, and then later on he got a hold of me and said we got to know each other. And we talked about this guitar, and he said he would loan it to me. So I was supposed to meet him here in Phoenix when Lords of Acid went on tour, and right then, that was the very week that the pandemic hit, and the Lords of Acid tour got canceled. And I did purchase a Laney cabinet from him, and so I drove all the way over to LA in March of the following year when I thought things had loosened up a little bit in terms of the pandemic, and picked that up from him. So there's little road-worn places on there, but it's natural relic, as it were.
Yeah, and I mean, you couldn't tell. I mean, I couldn't even see it. And what I am a sucker for gold hardware, personally.
Me too.
Yeah. Yes. You can't. I mean, I don't know what color it would not look good on, but I'm not sure if I've seen one yet.
How do you feel about? I'm curious about how other guitar enthusiasts feel about brands like Schecter. Like, sometimes I think they get sold short. They have a custom shop, and they existed for years making high-end parts casters. And I don't know if it's kind of snobbery to only want to get into Fenders and Gibsons and PRSs and turn your nose up at Schecter and some of the other quality guitars that are being made out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think that's a dangerous game. Certainly there's people that would, but that's their loss.
I think sometimes it gets caught up in kind of a music genre thing where Schecter's really gotten a reputation for heavy metal, hardcore music. And so those musicians and the people that they have on their artist roster are kind of in that world. And you don't see a country guy playing a Schecter, really. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying you don't really see that in terms of it's not reflected in their artist roster.
Yeah, and you can open a can of worms there, and this conversation it's perception or perspective, or judging a book by its cover by looking at a guitar and assuming this is the type of music that it should play, or that this is what should be used. And I think we're probably all guilty of that. I mean, someone could just argue no, if you put this guitar with this genre, it just not that it wouldn't work. It wouldn't aesthetically look right to if you saw the
Right.
performer playing it. And I think there's some merit to that too, but to get overly hung up on that is dangerous.
I think so. In terms of appreciating guitars as a work of art and also as a tool to create artistry, they're two things in one. They're a tool to create, to express creativity, but in the best of all worlds, they're also made by artisans, and the
Yes.
object itself is a piece of art. So you've got a few things going on there. It's kind of multi-level.
It is. That's a whole nother podcast.
It is. It is another podcast. A guitar that I love, 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 and I don't know if you've ever played a Parker Fly,
I'm not.
but this is a 1995 Parker Fly, and that's also known as the pre-refined ebony fretboard. There's the headstock. And I always thought that they did their serial numbers in an interesting way on the bottom
Oh yeah.
there. And look at those tuners. I mean, I thought Parkers were amazing guitars when they were new, and they were way, way, way out of my price range. Like, here, I'm trying to line this up. Look at how seamless that neck joint is.
Yes.
That is to me, even though this is a guitar for 1995, to me it's like this is the future. This looks like the future. And Parker himself was saying part of the problem was that he was building $10,000 guitars and charging $3,000 for them. And think about it, even in 1995 money, $3,000, that was a lot of money. That was, that might as well be $5,000 now, probably.
Yes.
I'm guessing. This has the piezo pickup. So this has the, you push the button to get stereo, and then there's a piezo outlet as well.
And can you
battery
spin it so we can see the neck joint profile because it's so thin? And I know
the
yeah.
the side view.
Yeah, I know
Look at that.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Straight on. Wow, we're getting crazy here. This isn't as easy as it looks because my camera is presenting it backwards to me. So this is like doing it in a mirror, and
you're making it look easy. However, so keep up the great work.
but look at that, and one thing like this is a mahogany body, but when you look really close, I don't know if you can see it or not because of the reflection of the lights, but you can see the what is the material they used?
It's is it it's not
Kevlar. It's not Kevlar.
No.
It's starts with an N.
Oh, I can't think of it either. I can find it.
I could tell you any day of the week until
right.
I go on camera on a show. But carbon fiber. They wrap these in carbon fiber.
Yes.
So you can see, I don't know if you can, I'll do what I can. You can see some wood grain there. Okay. So you're seeing the mahogany on the front, but on the back, if you look really close, I don't know if the camera's going to give it up, but you can see the carbon fiber and texture under the paint.
Can you feel it at all, or is it?
No. This is a polyurethane finish. It's very slick. This is the easiest guitar to play that I've ever played. And what led me to get this is I developed problems with carpal tunnel, and I knew these had a reputation for being easy to play, and it is the easiest. And in my hands, like the whole tone wood thing, I know that's another fight for another show. But this has great tone, and in my hands at least, the Parker sounds kind of like a Telecaster. It has kind of a thin, even though those are humbuckers,
Yeah.
it's got a thinner kind of Fender sound to it.
And since you are a Parker owner, you know the Parker people they they like their Parkers.
They do.
Yeah,
They
for
do.
all the reasons. I mean, you don't read a bad thing about them ever.
No, no, it's a joy to own. It's wonderful to play, and I don't know if anyone else goes through this, and it even feels weird to me. But like sometimes just touching the guitar, just the tactile experience of having contact with that, and the contours of the Parker are so extreme, and it's so unusual, yet it's very well balanced. Um, I don't know. There's just something really interesting about it. And I can see why Adrian Belew was drawn to them because, the Parker was his go to guitar for many years. I know recently he had a Fender custom shop Strat made with a Sustainiac pickup in it. I'd love
Well,
to see Fender release that as a model, but so far it's just something he got. He shared it on Instagram, but yeah, the Parkers are. I don't know. Yeah, you probably either love them or hate them. You know.
well, yes, because someone's gonna, my guess, presumably, aesthetically, it just doesn't sing to you. Therefore, you're gonna put everything in a box and set it aside with the guitar. Um, and if you if you don't like the aesthetics, back the aesthetics out and see how it plays, right? Because I mean,
Right.
they're crazy good. Not that I've played one, just the Parker people. I just started calling them that, so there we have it dubbed now. Love it, and I mean, I believe everything I read. So what they write and have to say about the Parker. So
Yes. It's all, as far as I'm concerned, it's all true. They're fabulous guitars. Um, I'm gonna. I'll keep it diverse. Right now, this is my number one guitar, and this is my PRS Custom 24, and this is Karina. So look at this beautiful thing. This is Karina neck, Karina body,
wow,
quilted maple top. Um, I do have an interesting story about this one.
let's hear it.
I love that quilted maple. I
Yeah,
am just
that is
crazy. So,
beautiful. Yes.
so that's violet burst finish. Of course, this is nitro, and then the abalone. That it's probably not going to play on camera too well, but the abalone bird inlays. Um,
And you had me at the gold hardware before it was a
I know,
PRS.
right? So here is. I think this is a good guitar collector story because I got the fever for acquisition and investment, and there's a guitar shop that's pretty well known down in Tucson called Rainbow Guitars, and they have a lot of guitars online. They've been around for a long time, so a lot of people know about them, and they have an excellent reputation. I landed one of the PRS Lunar Ice models from last year when they went on sale.
Yes.
Rainbow Guitars was allotted 6 of them, and I was the last person to get one, and I got the 6th one that they had. And I also had that's a Wood Library guitar, by the way, and designed by them. And I had a McCarty 594 single cut that had a quilted top, and it had a tiger, uh, orange tiger finish.
Wow.
And I had only bought that Silver Sky Lunar Ice because I wanted to flip it. I wanted to play the game that everyone had done the year before with the Nebula finish. But I started watching the market, and the market was not going to reproduce what had happened with the Nebula. And I think people just like myself who got one and thought they were going to flip it suddenly saw that they weren't going to get the return on investment that they thought they were going to get. And I was just watching the the market on those stayed flat. It was like, oh man, I'm not going to make any money on this guitar. And I was looking on their website before I went down to pick it up because they had let me know that it was in. And it was like the night before, and I saw that custom 24 with that quilted maple top. So I went down and I took the McCarty 594 with me. And we unzipped the bag on the Silver Sky that had the lunar ice finish. And you could smell the fresh lacquer. It's a freshly done guitar. And I pulled it out, but I traded it back in. So they refunded my money. I had already paid for it. They refunded my money. I traded in the 594 and $20. And got that wood library, which had all the appointments that I wanted. Quilted maple top, 24 frets. The Carina didn't hurt at all. That made it even more exotic. So
Sure.
the full finish. So I wound up getting more of the guitar of my dreams in that trade instead of getting a lunar ice, which I think the Silver Sky is a fine guitar, but it wouldn't have been something. I would have chosen that over the custom 24.
Wow.
So I traded them in. I took a thumping on the McCarty, which I had purchased from Casino Guitars. I took a little bit of a thumping trading that in, but I wanted that guitar so bad. You know, I don't know if you've had that experience where a guitar just speaks to you and you're like, and I knew that they would probably trade, and they did.
Cool. Yeah, most guitars speak to me, so I know that feeling often.
Yeah.
But
So,
I know what you mean, like the one, and that one did it. That's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as some of your pre-show questions go, the one that got away is that McCarty 594. I wish I had it back. I would like to have them both. I would like to keep this one and get that McCarty 594 back. It was fabulous. I do have a thing for the single cut guitars, and I have. If anyone doubts that Kiesel is doing fine work, check this out.
Yeah.
That's
Goodness.
master grade flame maple, neck through body. So this is mahogany, and this was built. Look at the movement of mahogany, the figuring on this guitar. And they've got that carved out heel joint there,
Yeah.
and it resembles the Kiesel claims they were doing this first before Gibson started doing the access cut. But that's smooth. You can see a ridge, but that's very smooth there. And that's a satin finish on the neck for speed. Once again, Bold Hardware. You and I talked about that. Matching headstock, custom truss rod cover. But look at this Royal Ebony fretboard. This is like totally different from the other one. Like
Yes.
that shows the variation that's possible. And now stock, the Kiesels have the Lumen Lay fret markers. So
Oh, cool. Yeah.
and this was built, to quote their salesperson, this was built as a Les Paul killer. I had a real thing for those Gibson Access Bingle Burst guitars, but couldn't quite get there financially. And someone online that I was in a guitar group with, they said, why don't you have Kiesel build their version? So this is, if anyone has seen the Gibson Les Paul Access Bingle Burst, this is the Kiesel iteration that I asked for. Kiesel themselves didn't think to copy that guitar. This was my idea.
Well, it's stunning. He did a pretty good move right there. Yes.
Yeah, Kiesel's building great guitars. There's a lot of good builders out there. PRS. I think I was thinking about this before coming on the show, and we look back and the early Fender. When Fender was kind of young and Gibson was kind of young, and people were right there at that time. They didn't really know what they would turn into. They didn't know what they would turn out to be in the future. And if they'd only known that they were in the presence of greatness at that time, right? All the people that worked with McCarty, the people that worked with Les Paul, all those luthiers up in Kalamazoo, if anyone had really known, at least in terms of guitar history, overall history, it may not be that important, but to people that play guitar and people who are into music, they were right there amongst greatness. And they didn't quite realize what was happening when it was in their midst. And I think our version of that, honestly, and some people may flip out online over this, is I think PRS is that for us. I think PRS found a way to innovate, come up with their own designs. They're making their own pickups. They're building fine, fine quality guitars. And this happened in our lifetime. And so we got to see a guitar company kind of sprout up and grow and turn into, I mean, we've all seen PRS come up and be a direct competitor with Fender and Gibson. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not dealing with those numbers. You know, Fender and Gibson both have a mojo that can't be touched because they're legacy companies.
Right.
You know? And so it's like Coca-Cola. They're going to have a certain something because they have that brand recognition and they were there first and built iconic guitars. And that's etched in our kind of cultural consciousness.
Right.
But PRS, I think, is doing that.
Well, and to your point, there in terms of prestige, now you know how guitar people are, but in terms of prestige, their name is right there with Gibson and Fender in so many ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
No, I think I'm glad that Gibson has new leadership, and Gibson is making a heck of a comeback. They are really coming back strong, and they knew, and I think they had some business savvy. They knew what to do to recapture that magic for them, and that was go back and just start making higher quality guitars of the iconic models that everyone knows. And so I'm happy to see Gibson doing well, and I'm just glad that this is the golden age of guitars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a good time to be a guitar player right now.
It is, and the number of boutique builders and custom guys. I mean, they're it's. I don't want to. Endless is not a fair term because in those circles they would say no. It's finite and like everyone's in my phone. Okay,
Right.
but there's still a lot of them, and there's so many incredible guitars coming out. And it may be that builder is only doing 6 a year or 12 a year or less, or maybe it's 50, but there's a lot of that out there, and that is artistry at its finest, and there's a renaissance of that right now, I feel like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look at what's coming out of Nag's guitars right now. Oh my God, every one is just they're to die for, and they've got so many different styles and finishes that they've done. So Nags, Sir, lots of these companies. My dream guitar. You asked about what got away, or what I would dream for. I pine for a Carl Thompson bass.
Okay.
Carl Thompson is a luthier out of New York City. He has built basses for Les Claypool, Stanley Clarke, lots of people. I would love to have a Carl Thompson bass.
Well, it can still happen.
It could still happen. So we're drawing down to our last two.
All right.
And I don't want to try to think of the correct order in which to do this. Now, you said something earlier. Someone was talking about collectible rare guitars. It doesn't necessarily mean expensive to be rare. And this is a Jackson Roswell. And one of the hotshot selling points of this is the crop circle fret inlays. Now, if I know that people have seen these, this is in 1996. Look at that. Is that just...
I love the tuners, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I love the tuners.
Yeah, look at the back. They're locking tuners. That opens up. Now, here's a hint. All aluminum back. A lot of people don't know this. I don't know if you know who Tom Holmes is, but Tom Holmes, early in his career, made these PAFs. So that's a Tom Holmes PAF string through body. Now, here's the cool thing. I sent this guitar to Trogley's Guitar Show to do a Halloween special in 2020. So if you go online and go to Trogly's Guitars, he compares this guitar, this guitar right here, to a Gibson that's kind of a knockoff of this. And, this is a no frills guitar. I'll show you some, and it is heavy. It is as heavy as it looks. The bridge, but this thing stays in tune. And these ridges, these are 3-dimensional. Those are that, and this is just a solid guitar. Like the neck is never going to warp. And those tuners are.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, those tuners are killer. And the story on this is 127 of these were made. And then they made another 23 or 24 black ones made of wood in Japan. But these original metal ones that came out of the USA Jackson factory, they only made 127 of these. And this is number 86.
That's cool.
And this guitar looks fantastic. I love sci-fi. I love outer space stuff. It's incredible, like these were to die for when they came out. I've said that a lot in this show, to die for. But that is not a practical guitar. It is so heavy. Like I could only imagine like bringing that out and playing it for one song, or playing it in a video or something like that, and then putting it back. It sounds great. It plays great. It's easy to play. The action is great. There are no complaints in terms of its playability. It's not a gimmick in that way. It is a very playable, great sounding rock guitar, but it's just so heavy. So it's not practical to own.
And you mentioned that to me. I went and watched the video, which is great.
Yeah, he does a great job.
Yeah, I mean, he always does a great job. And that guitar, I had never seen one before, because you're like, hey, do you know about this? And I'm like, no. Like, let me learn more. I mean, that is so cool. That is so cool.
No one does it like Trogly, in terms of getting a guitar, presenting it, taking it apart, showing it. So it was an honor. And that was one of those things where I contacted him and I was like, hey, I've got a real Roswell that's in excellent condition. If I send it to you, would you like to review it? He was like, absolutely. So I paid to ship it to him and paid to have it shipped back, and nothing was gained from it for me other than to let him finally get his hands on one and to tear it apart and take a look at it.
I mean, how else is that going to get done? And a very thorough review. So everyone, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I mean, it's
yeah. Halloween of 2020.
Halloween
2020. Very, very easy to search for. Now, back on the acquisition and collector front, we're going to close out. I thought it would be an interesting juxtaposition to kind of show the height of perhaps modern industrial technique in building a guitar with something that's all aluminum. And this is something else that I got from my friends at Casino Guitars. And I can't say enough good things about Baxter and Jonathan. This is a 1959 Melody Maker, all original, even down to the screws. It's the original screws, and I do have a bit of a story on this. It's not a tremendously long story, but it's interesting nonetheless.
And that's in great shape.
Oh, it is in great shape. And I'll go really slow on the backside here. Part of what you find when you see these is that the tuners get bent, the tuning keys get bent, and they're straight on this one. So that's what makes this kind of a standout example, is that those are the original tuning keys and they're not bent.
And I am shocked at the original screws.
Yeah, original screws, and I've checked. So you can see the condition of the neck. Of course, these, as we know, are just a slab of mahogany. But to think that the bursts that are going for $250,000, these were made by the same people in the same room on the same equipment. You know, but this is by no means as valuable as that. And I'm hoping the finish checking is sublime. Like you talk about, you know, relicking guitars and finish checking. It's so fine on this. You can kind
Mm-hmm.
of see it
Yes,
in some ways. Um,
you got it with that light. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So the finish checking is very fine, but it's there. I mean, that lacquer. So this is a 1959 Gibson Melody Maker. Look at the quality of the wood. I mean, the finish. So here's the story. And this is interesting. Technically, I suppose, I'm the third owner of this. This originally was the original owner. There's a little bit of wear. There's your relicking.
Here we go.
This this is original owner, and either the estate or the original owner sold this to Casino Guitars, and they had it. And a guy bought it, and he had it. I guess he had it for a minute, but decided that this guitar was not for him, and for some reason he didn't want it. So he sent it back to Casino Guitars, and then when it went back up for sale, this was an impulse buy. This was at the right price, and you know, because this is the cheapest way to get into the vintage game. You're not going to get a 59 Strat or 59 Les Paul or 59 Telecaster or whatever at the price point that this was. And so this was a way to get into the vintage instrument game and not spend as much money as it costs to build a house.
Yeah, and you got a fine example.
This is a fine example, and it plays great on the Casino Guitars channel. Baxter played this, so if you want to hear what this played or what this sounds like in the hands of someone really talented, you can look that up. But this is a wonderful example, and you know it's really in great shape. But I'm having a Leslie cabinet, a Leslie Tallboy rebuilt. So the goal is, and those are built from 1947 to 1949. So I want to run this 1959 Gibson through the Leslie cabinet once I get it rewired. Because everyone says that you need to rewire it because the transformer and the wiring is so old that you could burn your house down.
Yeah.
By plugging it in and turning it on, like you just don't dare flip it on. So, and you know, Phoenix is a great place to own a guitar, to collect guitars because it's dry and very low humidity. Sometimes that can cause fret sprout on some guitars. I haven't experienced that with any of these guitars, no fret sprout, but I keep them in their cases. These aren't just sitting out. And keep them in their cases. And the dry, arid desert environment is pretty kind to them. So you don't get a lot of warping and issues that can arise. You know, like if you lived in New Orleans, I've been to New Orleans. Look at the wood grain.
Yes. You know, don't
1959.
Don't shoot me. I love the mahogany, and I love it, and it can just be looks like the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's just like it's great.
No, it was. You know, kitchen tables, the console TVs that came a little bit later.
That's right.
They were built like furniture. They were built to last, and it's just like they used to build cars and everything else. This was a lifetime purchase at that time.
Yeah, and it is, and that's why it's still around and still looks that good.
Yeah.
From 59.
I have the original case, and the guy has taken screws to put it together. The case is in horrible condition, but it's together. The lining is still in there, and Yeah,
Well, the case served its purpose and it protected that guitar. So
it did. So it's all original with the case.
that's so cool. You have I love it. Like, you know, in a perfect world, like what you have within your, reach right there, I would love that lineup. Like, it's eclectic, but it's not crazy. It's just, it exemplifies what you like about guitars, and this, you like X, Y, and Z, and you might like the whole alphabet, but you've got a really cool representation of what you like. I think that's so neat.
Yeah, yeah. I like to purchase with a collector's eye, but at the same time, seeing these as colors of a color palette for music production and recording music, which is something I'm going to be getting into with mixmedia.com. I'm going to be reinventing, as it were, my podcast.
Cool.
I did have a podcast about the paranormal, and I got totally burned out on the subject, but I love music and instruments and guitars. So Music Matrix is going to be my new show later this year. And I'll be doing reviews of albums, concerts, artists, and also some gear review. And I'm going to have some people come on and play some of these guitars, and maybe we'll do reviews, not the kind of paid reviews that you're used to seeing, like when Eventide comes out with a new pedal, and then across all of the channels on YouTube, you see the same pedal being reviewed. Like, this will be gear that I own, that we're demonstrating, that is not a promotional endeavor, but just something that we want to play around with. So I'm going to be doing that, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
That's so cool, Natasha. This has been so much fun. Well, and I like you're talking, and it's been so much fun. If someone is listening to this and they don't watch it, they're gonna be like, "Who's the dork that kept saying so cool? Like, where's any better vocabulary?" But that's just a reflection of how I felt the whole time. So thank you for sharing these.
This is the So Cool to Die For episode.
Yes. I love it. Between you and I, like we got a whole sentence together combined.
Right. But thank you very much. It was an honor to be asked to be on your show. This is awesome. I love this, and I love what you're doing. Please keep doing what you're doing, and we want to see more from you.
Well, thanks so much. And I will. Hang on one second. I'm going to hit the end button. I'll let you know when we're off. Thanks, everybody.
Sure. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Guitar Gavel podcast, and a special thanks to Steve Kuykendall for composing this music and being such the great guy and friend that you are. As a reminder, hit the subscribe button and sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com.